So I thought I'd share my first paranormal experience I had today, posted in the Paranormal subreddit by Pickled Canadian. I was moving some old medical equipment that needed to be discarded from a small remote hospital. Being an early bird, I got there an hour before anyone else to get a head start on the long day ahead. There is an old, detached part of the hospital in the back, which is used for storage. It's where the hospital keeps old equipment that's ready to be thrown out or moved. This hospital is currently in the last stages of closing its doors before they reopen in a new location closer to town. I unlocked the front door and went downstairs to the storage room. There is only one way in and out, since you have to go down a very long hallway, then go down a flight of stairs to get to where the medical equipment was stored. This area I was working had no other corners or rooms. It's just one open hall-like basement. There are no shelves or obstructions, just boxes and clutter filling the floor. So here I am in a semi-lit room, cutting up boxes, moving stuff around, when, out of nowhere, I hear someone yell, "Hello?" It made me jump because I know for a fact that no one else was in that room with me, let alone in the building. I was the only one with a set of keys for security reasons. So I looked around the room stunned, trying to keep my cool. This hello didn't come from the hallway upstairs since it echoed off the walls near my work area. I couldn't explain it. I was even more confused since you can clearly hear people coming down the hall from the floor above when we were moving during the day. There were no footsteps or sounds coming from the hall above. I know for a fact that no one else was in there. I went upstairs to try and understand where the hello could have come from. It was nothing but an empty building. All I know is it couldn't have been my imagination. Even if I were to try and imagine a hello, it wouldn't be close to the type of voice I heard. I've never really had an experience like this before. Have any of you experienced this before? I'd like to hear your thoughts. Our experience where we live, posted in the Paranormal subreddit by Taylanis. I moved into the house we currently live in. The first month, nothing really happened that I know of, but I did spend most of my time with my significant other before our marriage. I did get a weird feeling when she worked and I was all alone, but growing up living in numerous haunted houses, you just tend to shrug things off. Not a month after our marriage, I was working and my significant other was alone at home. She was in the kitchen when she heard someone running through the house. We also discovered that our taps didn't stay shut all the time. I would come home and find that the bathroom's tap was dripping. At first I thought that the rubbers might be old, thus I replaced every last one of them. Nothing changed. The taps still drip. Once it happened while a friend was making coffee. It scared her so much that she no longer came to visit. I believe it's a poltergeist of some sort, but not 100% sure. Also, our 3 dogs that live in the house will regularly bark like crazy and try to chase the ghost out of the house. Tonight, my significant other was frightened so badly that it took me 5 minutes to calm her down. She was in the living room near the closed door that leads to the spare bedroom. The dogs started barking and she saw the door handle moving as if someone was trying to open the door. The dogs went off as if there was someone in the room. We opened the door and there was no one there. Giant Black Dog, posted in the Paranormal subreddit by Sunflowered Hippie. A while ago in Florida, I had just walked out the door to take out my greyhound when he froze in his footsteps and stared with his ears pointed up in an alert fashion. At first I tried to pull on the leash to get him to walk on, but he wouldn't budge. This was strange for him to behave like this, so I looked in the direction that he was looking, and across the street was a 6 to 10 foot tall bush, and next to it was the shadow of a giant black dog that resembled a Doberman. Pointed ears, sitting properly, but as tall as the 6 to 10 foot tall bush. I stood there for a good minute or two with my heart in my throat, debating on what to do. The dog seemed to be calm and focused on me. Since I could only see the shape of the dog, I decided I was going to go inside and grab a flashlight to see what it looked like. I went inside with my dog, yanking him as he did not want to lose sight of this thing. and I grabbed for the flashlight. I ran outside as fast as I could, and sure enough, it was gone. The dog's eyes did not glow, and I did not check the area in which the dog sat, but I was not taking any medication, and I was and am not delusional. This sighting even frightened me because I've never imagined something like this would ever happen. I regret not just walking up to the black dog, but I didn't want my dog to freak out or get hurt if something were to have unexpectedly happened. If you have any information on this, I would be interested in it, and if you know what this dog wants or means, I'd like to know that as well. I have done my research on the hellhounds, but they all claim to have glowing eyes. In this case, my sighting was different. I've read that they are a sign of death and or protection. Some people have even said that if you see them 3 times, then you die. I believe most of these are just rumors to scare people, but who really knows? If it was there for a warning of death, I'm still alive and I have done nothing to deserve to be killed by this creature. But I was going through a stressful and abusive time, so I'd understand if it were a sign of protection. Any legitimate information on this would be greatly appreciated. Living in a haunted house, posted in the Paranormal subreddit by Not From Over Here. I've been debating for a while whether to write this or not. I believe that saying things and putting them out there, thus confirming their existence, is what truly makes them real. I've always been quite interested in the paranormal, and seeing the paranormal forum on here made me want to speak about my experiences. These are all true. I've tried so hard to find rational solutions to seemingly paranormal situations, but these are the ones that I just couldn't figure out. I'm not writing this for the purpose of telling a scary story, but just to talk about my otherworldly experiences in the hopes of maybe finding a rational solution or hearing about similar experiences. So first I'll describe the setting. I live in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, although I'm not Ethiopian. I moved here roughly 2.5 years ago because of my dad's job, and one thing anyone from the diplomatic corps knows is that in countries that are still in very early stages of development, residences are given to the families that move for work for the time that they live there. This means that assuming that an embassy has been located somewhere for over a few decades, and that the average time spent in a foreign country is 3 to 5 years, hundreds of people could have lived and died in one house before you moved in. This is my case, but not only has my embassy been located in Addis for over 3 decades, my residence used to belong to a few other embassies before mine. So I moved here in December of 2013 at the age of 15, and always found the house kind of creepy. It's really old, with huge rooms, high ceilings, and a lot of woodwork pretty much everywhere. So cracks and noises aren't a rare occurrence. So keeping in mind that I tend to ignore sounds that, although are pretty scary sometimes, are most likely just the house settling. Aside from the uneasy feeling that would come from being in an old house, there wasn't really anything truly out of the ordinary until November, where for 4 nights straight, things just weren't right. I don't remember the exact dates of these occurrences, but the first night, a Tuesday, I went to bed as per usual. At the time, I slept with my door closed and every single light turned off. Even the little red light from my TV would bother me, so I would always be in the pitch dark every night. My room is pretty standard. 4 walls, 2 of which faced each other, were made mainly up of windows. My bed is against the wall between them, and my door and closet are in front of it. I woke up in the middle of the night and didn't think much of it. I don't have the best time falling asleep, nor staying that way, so I just waited for exhaustion to take me away again. I didn't move, didn't check the time, just stayed in the same position I woke up in. I'm facing the right side of my room with my desk behind me, and I start to hear noises. I paid it no mind at first, partly because I was exhausted, and partly because it wasn't a very loud noise and didn't really bother me at all, until I actually paid attention and realized what it was. It was the sound a book makes when you flip through all the pages cover to cover. At the time, I still couldn't really compute and was still pretty dazed and didn't even have enough energy to react. After that stopped, another noise started. It sounded like a zipper being opened and closed. At that point, I was too tired to even keep my eyes open and fell asleep. It was only the next day when I told my friends that I realized how creepy that actually was. Here in Ethiopia, the power is very prone to cutting out for several days at a time. Gladly we have a generator. This could mean that this particular event was a complete coincidence, or maybe not. Whichever one it was, it still scared the crap out of me, and since I move a lot, I'm proud to say that I have close friends from all over the world. I was telling my childhood friend Sarah what had happened over Snapchat, and the second that I hit send on the last video, the power died. I don't know if that was just a random coincidence or if something or someone didn't want me telling people what had happened. That night, I had a harder time falling asleep, the same way that even when you watch a horror movie during the day, fear still catches up with you when you go to bed. I ended up falling asleep with my door open and the hall lights on, just for the sake of reassurance. That kind of worked against me in the end. I woke up again, but this time without that hope that drowsiness would take me back to sleep. I was in alert mode from the second I opened my eyes. After a little while of laying motionless, I started to feel a bit more reassured as nothing had happened. So much so that I mustered up enough courage to roll over and check the time on my phone. It was a little bit after 3 a.m. I pride myself in being quite a sarcastic person, so I said to myself, "Oh great, haunted hour." Indeed it was. I turned my head to look out my door, and lo and behold, a black figure walked out of my bathroom adjacent to my bedroom, into my hallway, which faced the opposite direction. It was tall. Its head nearly touched the top of the hole for the doors. It was pretty skinny and lanky. Aside from the crippling fear that kept me from falling asleep until the sun came up, I don't remember much from that night. I ended up being sent home from school the next day because I couldn't even keep my eyes open in class. I was even more terrified that night and chose to sleep with a lamp on, and I actually fell asleep relatively fast, but had the strangest dream. When taken out of context, it's actually pretty funny to think about, but became chilling when I got the explanation for it. I dreamt of a goat bucking and attacking me. I woke up in the morning just weirded out, the same way you feel when watching someone do something exceptionally stupid and question what the heck they were thinking before consciously deciding to do something so dumb. The next night was the scariest for me. At first, I wasn't all that worried after the goat dream, that I actually found pretty hilarious after thinking about it. But I woke up again around 3 a.m., not particularly scared, but with that awful feeling of being watched, and just stuffed my head into the pillow. After a while of complete stillness and piercing quiet, I started to feel safe again and decided to move as nothing actually happened, and I couldn't really breathe properly with my nose being pushed against my face. While I shifted to get comfortable, I looked towards my TV and saw two dark figures which were clearly drawn out from the head to the shoulders, but faded starting at the midsection, one of which looked like it was made up of static and was lighter than the other. I looked at them for what must have been just a few seconds and turned away only to see another one, darker than the others, hovering over my head. You know that feeling of being so scared that your body stops following orders? When you're so paralyzingly terrified that you can't even blink, that every muscle in your body becomes pretty much useless because you're so stiff from fear? That's what I felt. I don't remember anything from that point until the next morning. I woke up a few hours later, went to breakfast, and thought I'd ask a few questions so that I could make sure I wasn't actually going crazy. I asked one of my house's staff members about the history of the house. He mentioned that it belonged to my embassy for some 30 years, that before us it belonged to the Indian embassy for less than a decade, and before them it was just a regular residence that anyone could rent, but that before it was a house at all, the territory was used as a slaughter area. And I say slaughter area because even today there aren't really any slaughterhouses, just an empty area covered by tarps on stilts where a bunch of farmers bring their goats and sheep to have them killed and the meat sold later on. Ding! That weird goat dream I had. Although it was slightly reassuring to know that that goat wasn't meant to symbolize anything satanic, it was still chilling to know that just some goat spirit that hadn't been properly put to rest was able to clearly communicate. I asked about anyone that he knew of who might have died on the property, and indeed, a gardener had had a heart attack on the job. He also told me that he had had a few strange experiences in the night, one of which he woke up to the feeling of being choked by something he couldn't see. And being a very religious man, he got his part of the house blessed. The staff lives on the same land as us, but we have a separate house. Another event that pretty much solidified the fact that I wasn't crazy was the story of my best friend's aunt. In December of 2015, my friend's family had come back here to visit her, and her father's sister, both of whom had grown up in Addis, very naturally and matter-of-factly told me that she was very close with the people who lived in my house who had also had various paranormal encounters. To this day, I don't have an explanation of what or who was in my house. For the sake of safety, I won't mention which country my embassy belongs to, but I will say that it's an Arab Muslim country, so it was pretty easy to find a bunch of Qurans hidden somewhere in the house. Ever since I put one in my room, I haven't had any major paranormal encounters, except for one time I bought a bracelet that's very heavily charged with negative energy, but that's another story. There is still other paranormal activity that happens throughout the house, though. This is my first Reddit post. Comment if you want to hear about any other experiences. Thanks for reading.